It is 9 o'clock on the West Coast. It is noon in Boston. So let's kick this meetup up and get started for today. So welcome everyone to, how can it be May 1st already? That's just crazy. But welcome to the Thursday, May 1st or May 2nd for Divisha meetup that we're going to be doing today. So big shout out to start this off to the sponsors that make this happen. SkillWave being my training company that helps you get better at Excel and Power BI. That is a division of Excel Guru, which also happens to be the company that releases and supports Monkey Tools, my add-in for building better data models faster and generally making your Excel experience more efficient. Our next meetups that we have coming up in a couple of weeks, we've got Sue Bays is going to be joining us to talk about getting started with Python. So that should be a cool, fun one that's definitely relevant now to both Excel and Power BI. And then we have Laura Sapezi is going to be joining us in June. I don't have the topic yet on this, but I know it's going to be something cool and interesting, probably around data visualization is my guess. So I'm looking forward to having her on the show as well. These are open for RSVPs, and we hope to see you there. Not a ton new in Monkey Tools. The main new thing that we've actually released over the past month here is that tags now support question marks, and seriously, they really do support question marks. That's actually not a question, but I actually had a user that emailed me and said, how come when I put in the prompt and I put a question mark on it and ask a question, it doesn't work? And I went, because nobody's ever been that polite before. So now Monkey Tools will listen to you if you decide to do that kind of thing. And of course, we always release bug fixes and whatnot. So that's what's new in Monkey Tools for April. Just a quick note here that in a couple of weeks, we'll be kicking off the next semester of my Excel Fundamentals Academy. I'm sure that a lot of people that are coming to these sessions here are probably beyond their fundamentals, but if you got someone on your team that you need to get up to a good level, intermediate level of Excel, this is a fantastic program. It's coached. There's lots of great material in it. I should definitely check it out. If you are past that and you want to get really, really good with self-service BI using Excel and Power BI, this is my premier training program. Here is the Self-Service BI Academy. We're kicking off our next semester of this on May 14th as well. Tons of training and coaching available in this one. Access to my Ask Ken Anything sessions, which we hold twice a week or twice a month rather throughout the year, and access to books and tools and all kinds of stuff. So great stuff in here. Fantastic program. You should definitely check it out. This meetup, along with all of our meetups, are recorded. I've checked, the recording is on, and those are hosted on the SkillWave YouTube channel. It takes me about 24 to 48 hours usually to get these things processed and posted. Once it is up, we will message through the meetup site to let you know if you don't already have a subscription to our channel. So be aware, it will be coming if you want to replay some of the cool stuff that John's going to show you a little bit later here. The last or penultimate thing I guess I'm going to say is if you want to come and speak to our meetup, we're always looking for new presenters on Excel or Power BI or anything that's tied into the Power Platform stack. If you're interested, fill out this quick little survey here. We'll get in touch with you and get you on our stage. And that is pretty much it for me. So I'm going to turn the stage over to my good friend, Jon Peltier, who's going to be talking about Lambda dynamic array formulas for statistical control plots. Dude, could you have made a longer title?
If you want, sure.
Yeah, of course you could. All right, at any rate, man, the stage is yours. So let me stop sharing my screen and we'll turn it over to you for what you got for us today.
Well, let me share my screen here. Click, and I'm going to share which screen? This screen, I guess. All right, you see that?
Perfect. Yes, I do.
All right, so let me want to try to well, okay, forget it. I'll let you watch the chat if there's any questions.
Perfect.
So, and you know what? Let me get rid of that. That wasn't supposed to be there. Okay, so the topic today is using dynamic arrays for statistical process control. And I'll do a quick intro here. My name's Jon Peltier. My background's in engineering. Not finance like so many other Excel experts such as Ken. I have a doctorate in metallurgy of all things, and I worked as a research scientist and a production metallurgist, gaining insights into manufacturing, statistical process control, and Six Sigma. I've used Excel extensively for over 30 years. My areas of expertise within Excel are data visualization, that is charting, as well as data processing with formulas, pivot tables, and other techniques, and also VBA programming. I've been a Microsoft Excel MVP since 2001. It'll be 25 years if I'm renewed this year. I started my own company, Peltier Technical Services, in 2004, which actually it was 21 years ago last month, and still going. I don't know if I'm going strong. It's kind of the end of my second career, so I'm looking forward to semi-retirement to spend some time with grandkids. Anyway, you can email me at john@peltiertech.com. If you have a question about this presentation or any Excel topic, shoot me a message, say, hey, I listened to your Vancouver user group meetup, and I was wondering. And also my LinkedIn handle is Jon Peltier. I don't post a lot there, but I interact with a lot of other people. And if I do post something on my blog, it shows up there. Let's see. Let me spend 30 seconds talking about my company. Well, first of all, my blog, which is at peltiertech.com, predates Peltier Tech. It started as a Yahoo GeoCities website back in 2001. Probably most of you don't even remember that. I moved to peltiertech.com in 2004, became a WordPress blog in 2008, and it's got hundreds of tutorials on all kinds of Excel topics, mostly charting and VBA. Lately, there's been a lot of dynamic array stuff because that's really cool, and that's what I'm going to be showing today. Peltier Tech works on custom Excel projects for clients based on my expertise in data management, charting, and VBA. Peltier Tech builds, maintains, and markets charting add-ins for Excel. And in fact, the version 5 edition of Peltier Tech Charts for Excel is coming out imminently. I was expecting it to be April, but it slipped a little bit. And it's actually going to be about version 4.9 because there's still some stuff I want to get in there, but I also want to get it out so people can start enjoying it as soon as I can. Also, I do training in various Excel topics. So visit the blog and website at peltiertech.com. And enough about me. Let's get into dynamic arrays and statistical process control. So here's the data that I'm going to be using. It's simple data. It's a month's worth of temperature data. I don't know where it is. Somebody else was using it as an example, and I snitched it and I used it for this. Basically, it's the average daily temperature in Fahrenheit, so it's not in Boston if it's in the 50s and 60s. And you see it's just 31 data points, and I'm going to use statistical process control to plot control plots. So the first kind of control plot that there is a run chart. And all this is, it's a simple chart showing the data and the median. And the median is just kind of a reference point, and it helps you evaluate the data, decide if it's even data for which this kind of analysis is valid. You look at, for example, how many times it crosses the median line. And given the number of data points, you can calculate there's a range where data is expected to fall if it follows, kind of a normal distribution of the errors and of measurement and so forth. And we see here, this one doesn't cross as much as you would expect. So it exhibits what's called clustering behavior. There's also, you count how many times it goes up and down within a certain number of points. And if it goes up and down every time, then it's too much switching back and forth. If it doesn't go up and down enough, and for example, this one, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This only has about 10 or 12 reversals, and that's not enough. So you would say this also exhibits trending in addition to clustering. And so, but anyway, let's just not worry about that. Let's build the data for a run chart. And so what I need is my dates, I need the average temperature, and I need my median. So I'm going to build myself a Lambda function. Lambdas are nice. I mean, I could just go straight into let, but I'm going to use Lambda because you give it a parameter to work on, and then you can take that Lambda if you want, name it and turn it into a function that you can use throughout your workbook. So let me just start and say Lambda and open, and I like to close the parenthesis so I don't forget to close it later. And the function goes inside the first set of parentheses. And then the second set of parentheses, that's where your arguments that Lambda is going to use. That's where you enter those. And my arguments are really just this data set here. So I'm going to select that whole table, and that's my the parameter I'm passing in. And let me come back to the run chart, and I'll start. Let me open out my formula bar, and I'll get rid of that stuff. I'll use Alt Enter to give. Yeah, I said I was going to do Alt Enter, but I did Control Enter. I do that all the time. Okay, so the parameter I'm passing in, I'm just calling it input. That's what I always call it, so I don't get confused. And then I don't know what's going on here. Here's where I do my let. And everything that I'm going to do is within this let formula. And I'll do Alt Enter again. Come on. You know, if you guys weren't watching, this would not be happening. So I'll type.
That's the funny part. If we weren't watching, it wouldn't matter either, right?
That's right. That's the way it always is, right? Okay, so Alt Enter. And so the first thing that I want to do is define the headers. So I'm going to call it headers. And my headers here, I'm just going to use the first row of the input. So I'm just going to use take input, comma, first row, and we'll ignore the columns. Alt Enter. Okay, good. I'm getting better at this. And now I want to define my x values. So I'll just say x values. And what that is, I'm going to take the first column, but I have to strip off the first row of the input. So it's going to be take. And actually, it's more flexible maybe if you use choose cols instead of use take. But I only have a 2-column input, so that's fine. So take, but I want to drop, first of all, from input, I want to drop the first row because I don't want the headers in here. And then I want to take the first column. So I left rows blank, so it'll take all the blanks. And then I want to Alt Enter, I want to define my y vals. And that's going to be take, drop, input one. So I'm dropping the first row again, and I want to take the last 1 column. So it's -1. And so there's my y values. And then Alt Enter, and I want one more thing. I want to calculate my median. And what I need is a whole column of median that I'm going to stack next to the x and y values. So to get that, well, first let me define median. I'm going to use the sequence function. And the number of rows are going to be the same as the number of rows of y values. So I'll just say rows y vals. And I'll leave columns blank because it'll be 1. My initial value is going to be median of the y vals. And my increment is going to be 0. So that means every value in there is going to be the median. And now Alt Enter again. And I'm just going to build my output right here. So I'm going to VStack my headers on top of my values. And let me get into here and do Alt Enter and do Alt Enter again. And I want to HStack the headers that I grabbed from the input data. So I want to HStack that with another label for median. And comma, Alt Enter again. And then I want to HStack all my columns of data. So X vals, Y vals, and median. And that looks right to me. So I'm just going to hit Enter and see what we got. too few arguments. That means I probably left out a comma somewhere. Oh, I left out a comma right here. In Python, it's semicolons. Here it's commas. So here's my data. And it doesn't look like dates because the format doesn't carry through, but I'm going to just select that range and give it my short date format. And so here's the chart that I grabbed from the next page. What I have is duplicate worksheets for each example I'm going to do. And the first one is blank, and I'm going to start and build it. And the second one shows it all done so you can reconstruct it. So anyway, I'm going to build a chart, and let me go insert. I'm going to insert a line chart, and here's my line chart. It sort of looks like that one. Let's do a little formatting. The formatting I like for the actual data is I usually use a blue or I use the dark blue, the first series color you get. I make the line a little bit less. I make it 2 pixels instead of 3. And my marker, I like giving it a white fill. And then for my median, that's usually let's see, I will get rid of my marker because I don't want markers on there. It's just a reference line. And I use a green color. And this one you could use, but I like that one. It's a little bit brighter. And again, I'll make it not as thick. And what also I'd like to do is put the median behind the data. Reference lines work better behind the data. So I want that to be the first series instead of the second series. So I'll go up to my series formula and edit the 2, change it to a 1. And now the green line is behind the blue data. Here's my run chart. Presto, change it. And what's nice about if I have everything built into a single dynamic array, if I add data, let's say now I've got another week of data for February, I'll just copy that and I'll paste it into my table. You see, the chart that's based on the table extended into February. And if I look at my run chart here, that has also extended into February. I don't have dates on the last few values on the axis because I only formatted as far down as the dynamic array went at first, but that's easy. You can just select the cell, double click, and it'll bring the formatting right on down. And there it is. And then of course, I'm going to come back here and I'm going to remove the data I added for the rest of the example. So let me just remove those rows. And now I'm back to only showing January. I'm back to only showing January. Okay, fine. So here's my dynamic array formula. And what I've done in the run chart worksheet here, you see the run chart, and I have the data, I mean, the calculation here, the dynamic array, and I have my formula, my dynamic array formula, and it's color coded. So the blue stuff works for all of these examples. The green is specifically for the run chart. So it's the median calculations that I did. And you see the green tabs here on run chart. I have orange tabs for moving range, which is the next one I'll do. And that will have some orange color coded code in the little cheat sheet off to the side. And then the individuals chart will have the plum color. So anyway, let's get into the moving range chart. When you're doing statistical process control, you look at the run chart first to give yourself some idea of the distribution of your data. And then you do usually the individuals chart and the moving range chart are shown together. It's called the IMR for individuals moving range, or the XMR for X for your values moving range. But I'm doing the moving range first because you have to calculate that first before you can calculate your individuals. And so what the moving range is, it's just the difference in value from one point to the next. So you see from January 1st to 2nd, there was only a small change, and then it went up, and there was a change here. This doesn't say which direction the data goes. This is an absolute value of the change from one point to the next. And the green line here is the average moving range, or MR bar, and the orange line is a limit which is based on, well, it's a calculation of what is 3 sigma above that average. And it's based on multiplying your average by this number 3.27. That's a constant that's been derived from, first principles in statistics, and we just use that all along. So anyway, what I'm going to do, first of all, and I'm going to put that here, in order to get this, I need my date, I need my actual values, not my values, but my moving range values. I need my average and my limit. And then you see I have actually added an indication that I've exceeded the limit for this 1 point. And that'll probably be part 2 of this piece. So I'm going to first come over here. I'm going to grab this formula because it starts out being much the same. And I'm going to come over here, and that cell is where I'm going to put it, and I'll paste it here. Now, I don't want median and that. I need to do some other calculations. But let me just say enter. So that's here for now. I still need headers, X values, Y values. I'm going to use the same input. So copy and pasting makes this work a lot nicer. I'm going to add something here. Let's see, Alt Enter again. And I'm going to call this K for constant, MRCL for moving range control limit, comma. And that constant, let me move this out of the way, is that 3.27 here. So I'm just going to type in, I'm going to hard code 3.27, although you're not supposed to hard code values into your formulas, but I'm going to do that anyway. So I've got that in here, which I need. Now I need to calculate my moving range. So I'm going to call it moving range, MVG RNG for moving range, and I'm going to give it a suffix of QQ, which is, well, I'll show you in a second. What that's going to be is equals V, not equals, V stack, and the first entry in this is going to be just double quotes. So QQ reminds me that this one has the double quotes on it. And what I'm doing is I need the absolute value of the current temperature and the previous one. So in order to get that, what I'm going to do is, well, it's absolute value, and I'm going to drop the first row from the average temperature and subtract it from when I drop the last row from the moving from the average temperature. So what that looks like is inside absolute, I go drop, and I say y vals, comma 1. So I'm dropping the first row, and then I'm going to drop y vals, comma -1. And then that's abs, and that's my V stack. So, and the first time, I had a much more complicated way of calculating the this differential. And then I saw somebody they dropped the first one and the last one and subtracted them, and sometimes I get my mind blown. So okay, so there's my moving range QQ, Alt Enter. And now what I have to do is change that to moving range NA. And what that is simple. If moving range QQ, if that is just the double quotes, I want to replace it with NA. Otherwise, I'll keep moving range QQ. And then, that didn't work. Oh, because I don't have a median here. I'm going to have to change all this in a minute. And I meant to do the Alt Enter, and you see I messed that up so much. So now I need to calculate my average of my moving range. So I'm going to use MR bar. And what that is simply, I'm going to use the same trick I did before with sequence. And it's going to be rows of the Y values. And it's just average of moving range QQ, and the increment of MR bar is 0, so that every element of MR bar is that average. And again, the sequence trick gives me the whole range. And before I saw somebody do sequence this way, I did this complicated thing, and didn't blow my mind as much as the moving range calculation. But okay, so now I need my MR control limit, MRCL, and that is simple. That just equals MR bar times that constant, KMRCL, and I'm going to change my headers. So I don't want all my headers. I just want the first header. So I'm going to use index headers, comma, should be comma 1, right? And then I need to put moving range in here, and it's got to be in quotes. And then I want my MR bar. And then I want my MR limit. And so now I have to do my H stack. So my H stack is X values, and then MV G, R, NG, NA. And the reason I need NA is when I plot it in the chart, I don't want the first value to show. And if I have the double quotes there, Excel will treat it as a text, which gives it a value of 0. So there will be a spurious 0 there. So I'm using moving range NA instead, and then MR bar and MRCL. And I'll hit enter. And now here's all my data. And again, I have to convert that to a date, short date, and I can build my chart from that. Now, I didn't do this yet with my out of control thing because I was going to draw the chart and say, gee, I wish I had that, but I'll just draw the chart once when I get that done. So let me go back and add in the out of control. And for this situation, it's easy because it's only where the moving range exceeds MRCL. I want to show that value. Otherwise, I'll just show NA. So right here, I'll define one more thing within my let, and I'll call it moving range OOC for out of control. And what that is basically it's just an if statement if. Moving range MVG RNG NA is greater than MR control limit, then I want to show the moving range NA, MVG RNG NA. Otherwise, I want to show NA so that nothing is plotted there. And I need to add that to my output stack. So it's moving range out of control and moving range out of control. And you see that just gets added here. And it's all NAs except for that one point that exceeds the limit. So now I can do my chart. So insert, and I'll insert plain old line chart like this. And first thing I'll do is I'll control 1, and I'll change the line thickness of everything to 1.5. Let me give ourselves some more room. And I'll select each other series and I'll go F4 to repeat that, F4 to repeat that. Now this one is my data, so I'm going to add a marker. I'm going to just use the automatic circles and I'll give it a fill color of white. And now you see the green and the orange are reversed here. Probably I could have thought ahead and put my limit in front of my bar so that the automatic colors that Excel uses would have worked. But people like to use red and green instead of orange and green. They still haven't learned about color blindness. So anyway, let me just go in here and I'll pick that other green color. And now my limit will be either orange or red. And then there's one more series. And if I click on this point that's out of control, you see that there is, in fact, a series there, but it's line and markers. There's no lines connecting it because it's the only point showing. So what I have to do, I'll just say no line just to make sure, because if there's two next to each other that are out of control, you don't need a line connecting them. And I'll change the marker and I'll use a square and I'll give it a fill of red to say, oh, it's a worrisome thing. And I'll give it a border of black. And now here's my moving range chart. And of course, what I want to do is make the data come in front. So instead of the first series, it's going to be the third. So I'll just edit the series formula. And there we go. It's in front of the reference lines. And that's my moving range chart. And you see the calculation wasn't too much more complicated than the previous one. And it's all outlined here on this sheet. And so now what I'm going to do, I want to draw my individuals chart. This should go easier because the cheat sheet I'm using is printed larger, but when I printed it larger, it was the second thing I printed, and by then the color cartridges were running out on my printer, so I had to go back to the earlier one I printed, which was too small to read while I'm doing a presentation like this. But anyway, so I'm going to come here, I'm going to grab this Lambda formula. See, it's getting longer. And I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to paste it here. Whoops. I'm going to paste it here. So, actually, if you paste it that way, it thinks it's text and it spreads it out. So I have to paste it in the formula bar. So now this is the wrong stuff. It's the moving range data, which I don't necessarily need. So let me first describe, before I edit the formula, let me describe the individuals chart. It has my actual data in it. It has a line, usually a green line for the average, and it has red lines for the upper and lower control limits. The upper and lower control limits, you calculate your 3 sigma by multiplying the moving range, the average moving range from this chart. You multiply that by a different constant, which is this constant, to give yourselves the span between your average and your control limits. So that's why I copied this formula, because it already calculated the control limits. It calculated the moving range that I need. So what I'm going to do is I don't need K MRCL. I'm going to use a different K, and I'm going to use K, and I'm going to call it ULCL for upper and lower control limit. And that value is 2.66. So 2.66. I need my headers, X and Y values, my moving range QQ. I'm not plotting my moving range on any chart, so I don't need the NA version of the moving range. I need my MR bar because that's what I'm going to use to multiply by this constant to give myself the upper and lower control limits. I don't need the control limit or the out of control. So What I do need is my average. So let me Alt Enter. And so I'm going to call it AVG for average. And it's easy. It's sequence. It's the same sequence trick that I've been using all along. Rows of my Y vals. Actually, rows of X vals is the same, but because my calculation is based on Y vals, I'm going to keep using that. And it's average of Y vals. And my increment is 0. Let me put a comma first. So there's my average. Control Enter. Oh, not Control Enter. Alt Enter. I keep doing that. And then I need my lower control limit, LCL, and that's easy. That's just average minus the K upper and lower control limit times MR bar. And I have my Alt Enter upper control limit, which is the average plus the KULCL times MR bar. And in order to calculate my out of control, normally you would do something like if the average, not if the average, if the Y value is less than lower control limit, or if it's greater than upper control limit, you would put the value, otherwise you would put NA, so nothing's plotted. But it doesn't work that nicely. So what I'm going to do here is, did it again. I did it again, I should say. And I'm just going to define a block here. And this might not be the most efficient way of doing it, but it's something that I came up with that works well enough. So what I'm going to do is stack my Y vals, my lower control limit, and my upper control limit in something called block. And then I'm going to define another name called out of control, OOC, and I'm going to use a by row formula, because when you have the OR, when I use the OR, it looks like if your Y value is greater, is less than any of the lower control limits, or if any of the values are less than the lower control limit, or whatever, I got a whole column of truths, and I had to do a by row in order to make that work out right. And probably somebody can come up with something much more elegant than this, but I don't care. It works for me. So block, and inside the by row, I need another lambda. And that other lambda is going to be, it's going to be an if statement here. So I'm going to say lambda, and I'm passing each row into the lambda of the block. So I'm just going to use R to reference that row. And then I'm going to say if. And then I'm going to say or. You see, I'm putting my commas and my brackets in there as I'm typing, so I don't forget to do it. It makes it a little bit easier to keep track of while I'm writing it. So if the index of R, if the first item, which is the Y vals in that row, if that is less than index R2, which is the second at the lower control limit, and within the or, let's see, or I didn't put, wait a minute. Okay, so I put a comma right here. So or if the index of R1, which is my average, and that would give me an error too, if that is greater than index of R2, comma 3, which is my upper control limit. So if either of those is true, I get a true. So if it's true, I want to show index of R comma 1. Otherwise, I want to show NA. And one thing that can be confusing about doing these dynamic arrays is you will have a whole bunch of parentheses at the end that you have to count. But the color coding that Excel uses makes it easier to track. Now, let me fix my output. So now I'm going to use the whole headers, not just the first element. And what am I going to add to it? So I have my headers, and I'm going to add average. I'm going to add lower control limit. I add upper control limit, and I add my out of control. And for my H stack, I want my Y vals, I want my average, I want my lower control limit, I want my upper control limit, and I want my out of control. And in fact, I could have, since I had a block which already had my Y values, oh no, my average is separate here. So here's what my formula looks like. And if I haven't missed a comma somewhere, I get my outputs. And so now I have a name problem here. And let's see if we can debug it.
Hey, John, your third argument of your inner lambda there, you've got an index C instead of index.
Oh, look at that. I tried to delete the C. All right. Thanks, Ken. This is what you call pair programming. And so now we see my out of control. I do have a couple of points showing. So let me move the sample chart out of the way, and I'm going to just insert another line chart. And now here's how John builds a line chart. And of course, it messed up because I forgot to convert my dates. So let me just convert my dates and change that to short date. And now let's build another line chart. And this time John did it right. So, and then it's very easy. We're going to start with one of them here and change the line width. I wish there was a way, without you getting into custom chart templates, that you could tell Excel, I want all of my charts to use this line width, things like that, but there isn't. So I want markers on my blue series here. I'm going to use the automatic markers, but I'm going to give them a fill color of white. My average, I'm going to change the line to green. My upper control limit to red, lower control limit F4 to repeat that. And now you see I have this darker line up here. That's because I had 3 out of control points in a row. So that's that last series. So I'm going to select that series. And I'm going to say no line, but I'm going to give it an out of control marker like I did for the moving range chart a moment ago. And so let's see, I'm going to fill it with red and border of black. And here's my individuals chart. And it's got all the data in there. And usually, in fact, I would dispense with the legend, because people that use these charts look at it and they recognize what the series in the charts are without referring to a legend. Also, I want to make this not the last series in the chart. I want it to be before the out of control. Out of control is 5, so I want my average temp to be 4, click, and there we are. So the data is in front of the reference lines, and the out of control points are in front. So, well, that's great, but now I've got this in 3 different formulas across 3 different sheets. Yeah,
Before you move on, quick question here. You made a comment in here about you wish you could set your lines up so that they always used a 1.5 instead of something else. So there's a comment in the chat. Can you not save it as a chart template?
Yes, you can, and I hate those. They never
There
work
you
the way
go.
I want.
There you go.
I just wish, like, if you do an XY scatter chart with connecting lines, it's a nice 2-pixel line. But line charts, it's like a kid drew it with a crayon, and I hate it. But I mean, what else I would like? I would like the horizontal axis. I would like the axis lines when they're drawn to be a little bit darker than the grid lines. But
yeah, it's a shame we can't create themes or something like that for these kind of things like you can in Power BI, right?
I would like a theme. I would like to be able to, and I mean, there's other things like sometimes the spacing between elements in the chart is either too much or too little. And I would like finer grained and reproducible control over that so that I didn't have to like manually tweak the position of data labels. A data label is usually a little bit too far away from the marker. I wish it was half the distance away.
Jeff says make a macro for it, but I mean that's essentially what your Peltier tools are, right?
That. Here's all the macros I've built for stuff like that. Okay, and these are tools I built for myself that I found them handy enough that I put them into this program, and all these features will be available in the new version starting, I hope, next week. Anyway, I'm not here to sell I'm not here specifically to sell my product, but if you like what I'm saying and so forth, at least check it out. But anyway, so yeah, make a macro for it. I've made millions of macros, and the thing is now, if somebody wants to use this on a Mac, well, I have to make sure the macros work on the Mac. If somebody wants to use it in the online version of Excel, the macros aren't going to work. So, if you have a theme that you can apply, that would do it. Anyway, so now, well, I used some of the same stuff in each of these separate analyses. It'd be nice, instead of having to track 3 different output worksheets for each control chart, for each data set, or then I'd have to have these 3 different dynamic arrays in a worksheet, and that's just a mess. If it's all in one concise place, then that's what I'm going to show how to do. And in fact, the nice thing about using dynamic arrays is I don't have any helper columns in my output. The helper columns are in the formula. In this case, I calculated my moving range and my average moving range, but I didn't have to show them to the world in my sheet. If I did it just on a tabular basis, and I have a program that I wrote for a client that does this kind of chart, and it uses just a lot of columns, and of course there's more things than just the out of control. There's other things that define if it's out of control. If you have too many points in a row that are too close to the red line, or if you have too many points in a row that are too close to the green line, or too many points in a row that are increasing or that are decreasing, or too many that alternate back and forth in a row. There's all these different things that you can keep track of that will give you some insight into your processes, the behavior of your process. And what those require a lot of helper columns. And but I don't clutter up my output with helper columns. They're there when I need them, and then they go away. So anyway, I want to combine all these things together. So it's just one big control charts thing. And so I've got all the columns here that I need to make my 3 control charts, my run chart, moving range chart, and individuals chart. And I'm going to start with let's see, I'm going to start with, I think, the moving range chart. And so let me take this formula and I'm going to copy it. And I'm going to select the cell. I'll paste it in here. So this is the moving range stuff. And let's see, I'm going to insert here, before I do the moving range stuff, I'm going to insert my median for the run chart. And that is just the sequence trick. And it's rows of Y vals. Median of Y vals, 0. So median is in here. That's what I needed from the run chart thing. And I have all my moving range stuff here. And now I need to get my individuals chart items in here. So let me just skip a few lines all at once. And so average, and that's again the sequence trick. And it's rows of Y vals. Blank. Average of Y vals, and I increment by 0. So there's my average. My LCL, I already have it here because I calculated my MR bar. So it's, did I add? Okay, I have to add my other constant K, ULCL, and that is 2.66, comma. So my lower control is average minus KULCL times MR bar. And my upper control limit is average plus KULCL times MR bar. And I need those two lines from the block. So what I'm going to do is just temporarily comment this all out. And I'm going to have to fix that in a minute. But so I'm going to copy these two lines, block and OOC, copy. And I'll come back over here. And let me take that single quote out. And oh, I didn't want to enter it yet. That's fine. And let me paste those two lines in here. And now I have to just fix my output. So I got headers. And which includes day and average temp. I like to put this little thing here while I'm building it, just so I remember what has to go in here. So moving range, MR bar, MR limit, MR out of control are going to go there. But first, I'm going to add other things. So I'm going to insert my median. I'm going to insert my average line. I'm going to insert my LCL. I'm going to insert UCL and out of control. And now we have to fix this down here. X vals, Y vals, median, average, lower control limit, upper control limit. Out of control. Moving range, NA. And then I have MR bar, MR limit, and MR out of control. And probably, well, it's in this line, there's a problem.
Looks like you're missing a quote after UCL.
Oh, that's right. And again, that pair programming is great. Now I got a name error.
Now you're on your own.
Now I'm on my own, yes. So let me make sure I typed all these things right. KULCL. Worst comes to worst, I'll just go and copy it from the other sheet and paste it here. But that's AMRCL, that's right. All right, I don't see what I did wrong. MROOC, MR limit. Oh, that's right, MRCL. There we go. That wasn't too hard to find. And so now I can build myself 3 different charts. And I'll just build them. I won't go through all the formatting. Let's see. I want to. So building charts, I'll select those 3 columns, the first 3 columns. I'll insert my line chart. Here's my run chart. And what I'm actually going to do, I'll line it up nicely and I'll shrink it down a little bit. I'll get rid of the legend because we know what that means. And then now I want my moving range chart. So I need my day and I need all the moving range information. So I'll insert a line chart for that. I'm just doing it this way so that they're all going to be the same size because I'm compulsive that way. So here's my moving range chart. And then I need that, and I need those columns for my individuals chart. And now, one nice thing about this is all these charts take data from the same dynamic array spill range. So if I go back to my original data, and like I did before, if I add the first week of February on top of the January data, my chart here updates, but also my control charts here all updated. And you know they updated because they don't have the date format for the last few data points. And so I guess what I could do is show one more trick here. I talked about how these Lambda functions can easily be turned into just a built-in user-defined function. And I'll show the process for doing that. Here's my formula. We know it works because I figured out what stupid typos I made. And so you select everything except for the last parentheses that control that indicate what argument you're passing into the function. And you copy that. And you come over to formulas. I'm going to define the name, and I'm going to call this control chart data. And I mean, this was already an awkward dialogue before they introduced lambdas. But you paste that in here, and here's the formula. There's a bunch of funny spacing in there, but that doesn't matter. And I'll say, okay. So now what I can do is insert a sheet, and I'm just going to say equals, and I want to do control, and here's the formula I just added, control chart data. And my input, I have to come over and select my input. and close the parenthesis. There's my data. I can use it now, and I could use it with different data. All I have to do is remember to change the date. I wish there was a way that you could tell inside your Lambda which column you want to have, which number format. I suppose that's coming sometime in the future. If you have a table and you've applied a format and you extend the table, the format rolls down. That doesn't happen with these formulas yet. But all right, so this is how I've used, and actually I'm working on adding this to this. I'm going to have another button here for these simple control charts. They're simpler than like the other package I built for someone. It was a dedicated SPC control chart program, and it was VBA driven, and it was very powerful. You could do a lot of different stuff with your charts. You could define a few different styles if you like it light like this or dark with heavy black lines everywhere, which people that are used to the 20-year-old version they were using before, that's what they like. So that's what we have. It has ways of, let's say you're looking at it month over month and you want to look at January separate from February. You could do a control chart that has 3 lines for January and 3 lines for February and so on. You could define things like that. These formulas, you could do that. It would make your helper columns that much more complicated. But for a rudimentary approach, it's very powerful. So anyway, I see there's been a lot of action in the Control Shift 3. Yeah, thanks. I wrote those down last week and I haven't learned them. Should I go through any of the stuff in the chat
John,
window, or do people want to just ask questions?
You know what, Jeff asked a question on this one. Would padding the text or with a text column 1 and a date format or something like that break your Lambda? I don't think that would work for the date column formatting, would it?
Well, but the thing with doing that is you would use the text function, and then that column would be text.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
It wouldn't be numerical dates.
So then it wouldn't plot properly in the axis automatically.
Well, in this case, it would plot the same because I have a data point for every day. But if I had a data point for Wednesday and then I didn't have another data point until Saturday, and then I had Sunday, Monday, and Friday, if it was text, they would be plotted, the points would be equidistant, even though the elapsed time between measuring the points was not. So that wouldn't work. Yeah, it'd be nice if it did, but it doesn't. So yeah, go ahead.
Does that answer the question, Jeff, for why it doesn't go?
It would have to be some kind of meta. It's like if you use the stock history function, right? That's a dynamic array, but that has some smarts built into it that says that first column is dates and the other column or columns, open, high, low, close, those are going to be currency. And then volume, I guess it must be just the number format. So there's got to be a way behind the scenes that there's the capability to put in some kind of metadata for what the format of that field is.
Yeah, Jeff saying that the year month format will plot numerically because the alpha sort matches the numerical sort.
No, it's not the sorting, because no, it still won't plot right, because if I have April 1st, April 2nd, April 12th, April 14th, those will not be plotted proportional to the elapsed time. They will be plotted equidistant. And that's the problem.
Fair enough. There you go. Question from Stanton. If you create a chart using your add-in for a client, does your add-in need to be installed on the receiving client's Excel workbook?
It does not. I use regular Excel charts. There's custom formatting in the charts. There's probably some crazy data layout so that the chart looks right. There's hidden series in many of the charts and just other tricks to give you the right appearance. The add-in builds the chart and then steps back. So you can take that chart, you can copy it into another workbook, you can paste it into PowerPoint, and it'll still be live with links if you want. You can email it to somebody who doesn't have the program. The only thing you can't do is prevent them from breaking it by changing something. But,
yeah, because they're users.
Users, right? What can you say? So anyway.
I got a question for you, John. Just on the watching you go through and you build all this kind of stuff here. I don't know that I've ever seen anyone start building a Lambda function before where they've gone with a Lambda. I'm going to put an input. I'm going to put my let function in the middle, and then you have the parenthesized argument at the end that takes your input on the Lambda the way that you have approached this one here. Most of the time, where the way that I would try and build something is I'd build it first as a let function and then Lambdify it after the fact.
Yeah. This saves me the then you got to debug it twice, right? So
well, no, I don't think so, because generally the way I find it is, I mean, as long as you have all your parameters up front for your in your let function,
yeah,
when you go to switch it out to a Lambda, you just say Lambda equals and you put your name variables in there, cut them from the let function, and you're good to go.
I think it gives me a little more discipline, because if I'm doing a let, like for example, one of these with the let, I might forget to define my constants at the beginning. And in fact, other times that I've done this same kind of analysis, instead of defining these as constants, I have had my KMRCL and my KULCL as inputs to the Lambda, and down here I point to other cells. Okay. And if I hadn't done that, I might have just, used a cell reference here and used a cell reference here. And then, it's not as elegant or disciplined an approach. And since most of the time I'm thinking I'm going to make a Lambda function out of this anyway, I might as well do it this way. Fair makes enough. Sense to me. It works nicely. And
yeah, different style. So I mean, for me, I would declare all my cell inputs up front as the first parameters of the let function, and then I just cut them and put them in the front of the Lambda when I move it across. But like I say, it's a different way of dealing with it for sure. I've just never seen your approach before. It's interesting.
I mean, it works for me. It makes sense for me. And
that's the important part.
Yeah, well, really, because I'm the one using it, and then if I pass it off to somebody, it's already a Lambda. So
interesting.
That doesn't have to go further. So let's see. I don't know. Are there any other? There's so many comments here, and somebody mentioned using chart templates, and I don't like using chart templates. I'm just funny that way, I guess. They're not. The problem is they're not as functional as I wish they were. And if I and it still doesn't give you, like, the other thing about if I could set it in a style, particularly with spacing stuff, I don't like changing the size of my plot area, because then if I stretch my chart, the plot area doesn't stretch kind of the way I expect it would. And if I was able to just tell it, okay, between my chart title and the top of the chart, I want, a certain amount of space here. And you can do it by changing the size of your plot area. But if you change the size of your plot area, it's no longer automatically controlled by Excel's whatever infrastructure there is to control the size of the different pieces of your chart. And so that's why I don't like using, chart styles, chart templates. It's just too frustrating.
Fair enough. All right. I don't see any other questions in the chat. Quick nod out to teaching SuperCalc in last year of uni. Yeah, I got that lesson too.
Yeah.
Wonder whatever happened to that program. But yeah, I don't see any other questions. So if there are any other questions, by all means, throw them into the chat, and we'll ask Jon before
we
he
can
runs away.
People can raise their hand and ask out loud if they want.
Absolutely true. Yeah, if you got a question, jump in. I mean, not a challenge.
Yep.
As a comment, we can use date axis and format numbers as dates there. Yep, and that's what you've basically been doing.
I could do that, and in fact, if I come back over here, and let me, I'll show you a trick that I learned recently. So I'm going to come back here, and I'm going to change that back to general. And now, if I make my run chart with that data, I'll go and insert a line chart, and Excel treats that number that's around 45,000, it treats that as another set of Y values. I don't have X values here. But something that I learned recently, and I probably didn't learn it as soon as I might have, is because I have always avoided recommended charts. And this little button here at the bottom, it goes to recommended charts. And so because I usually don't like the recommendations, I don't go there. But from recommended charts, you go to all charts. And if I select the line chart, well, here's the one that it built me, right? Day is just another Y value. But if I look over here, look at that. Excel gives me an option where day is on my X-axis. And my temperature and average are on the Y-axis. So here's my chart. And now I can just come over here and format my chart that way. So instead of just picking the line chart off the insert menu, if you go through recommended charts to all charts, then you have the ability to do this. Otherwise, it's a whole lot of standing on your head to add, change something to X values or whatever, and it's really crazy. But so here I can just pick myself a nice date format, and there we are. And I didn't have to change it in the column.
Isn't it funny that as experts we're preconditioned to go, I'm not taking your recommendations, I know exactly what I want.
Yeah, or it's like this guy right here, right? How many times did I ignore it because it's a stupid icon that Microsoft puts in my face? And one day I clicked on it, it's like, look at all this great stuff, right? But we're preconditioned. Now, the other reason you want to format that as dates is because some person is going to put their eyeballs on this data set, and this is not a human-friendly date. So that's another reason to do it that way.
Scott's asking, does it give you that option for pivot table data as well?
The pivot table, what you mean? What I just did to create the chart?
Yeah.
The pivot table, I think, automatically, because of the structure of the pivot table, it automatically uses stuff in the rows area as your X values, and stuff in your values area as your Y values. I'm trying to visualize what you're asking. If you have dates running, yeah, okay. If you have dates running across the top of a pivot table,
you're plotting pivoted data rather than plotting the original data source.
Well, but it's not so much that, but a pivot table only plots in columns.
Fair.
So, and if you just select a range and you plot it, Excel counts the rows and columns, and if you have more rows than columns, it plots it by column. Now, what's stupid is if you have an equal number of rows and columns, it plots it by row. And I wish it didn't do that. But again, Excel does a lot of stuff, and I've brought it up with the people on the Excel team, the PMs and the engineers, and they're like, "Oh yeah, well, okay, we've always done it this other way, so dream on." But
Yes, that's great feedback.
but what else is kind of
Yeah.
cool is I've discovered, you know, bugs over the years, and they have um, they've been able to fix them. There was one recently, um, the VBA command that's equivalent to this shortcut. I'm going to do, is it the F11 shortcut where it inserts a chart sheet? And never mind the chart, it's a piece of junk. This where it's too much data and it's columns. But that the VBA equivalent of that shortcut was broken. And I never used standalone chart sheets. As far as I'm concerned, they haven't worked right since 2007. But a colleague of mine, a client of mine, brought it up to me, and I brought it up to Microsoft, and within a week they had it fixed. And it's like, that's just mind-boggling. Or I'll show you another thing. If you look at let me see. Okay, in the select data dialog, and you go to hidden and empty cells. See this checkbox here? Show NA as an empty cell. That's my checkbox. Because I've been mad at Excel for so long, because if it used to be if you had NA, it wouldn't be an empty cell. It would be a line between the points on either side. And there was no way to represent a gap in your chart. The best you could do was NA, so it wouldn't draw a marker, but it would still draw a line across where you wanted the gap to be. And
how long ago did they implement that?
It was sometime not in the first release of Excel 2016, but one of the service packs. It came out. And
2016?
2016.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and if you were on Office 365 at the time, that's when you got the update through one of the 365 updates. So
I didn't realize it was that new.
Yeah, it is pretty new. So, but yeah, so I like to think I've had a little bit of influence over Excel, not in all the ways I wish I did, but you know, I can dream, and you know, I keep filing my bug reports. I'll just remind people if something goes wrong, or you have a bug, or you have something you don't like. Well, let's see. Let me move. Hang on. Teams put something in my way here. I can't move the. So on my QAT, I also don't like my QAT below the ribbon because it just steals another row and a half of data from the visible part of my worksheet. This button right here, I use it so much I put on my QAT. That's the same button that you get from help and feedback. And anything happens, you come here, you go to help, report a problem. I always show a screenshot, or well, if it's relevant, I include a screenshot. If it's relevant, I'll upload a file. Yes, they can contact me, and I give them a bunch of information, and I give my name, and I say Excel MVP. And Johnny Thomas, he's the guy that runs charts for Microsoft. He says that he has, you know, when these come in, they go into this great big database, and he has something that whenever my name shows up in one of these, he gets a message. So
I mean, for anybody else that's using that field to submit these things, I mean, Microsoft does actually read all these bug reports. They'll take a look at all of them, which is really great. They will actually respond to you. But the biggest piece of advice I would give you on that is give them very, very clear steps on how to reproduce it, and it has a chance of getting fixed. If you just throw in, I don't like it, that feedback isn't really very actionable.
They can't do anything with it.
But exactly, yeah. So But if you've got clear repro steps, they will definitely work on trying to get these things fixed, which is amazing. And I've seen them fix a lot of things over the years. I've seen Jon submit a lot of bugs over the years, but they do listen, which is great.
Yeah. So, it's not the same Microsoft that we were dealing with back in 2007 when they came out with such a buggy new product. I mean, obviously it was buggy because they made so many huge changes to it. 1 million rows, right? Whoever thought we'd have that. And they totally rebuilt the chart engine, and it didn't even work until about SP2.
Well, the ribbon and all the rest of it, yeah.
And the ribbon, and of course, the ribbon keeps getting thicker and thicker. So, every release, every new ribbon redesign steals a row of my worksheet. And, I can't use 8-point font anymore because my eyes are getting too old. But yeah. So anyway, now we've always done it that way. Somebody just made a comment, Stanton. But you're right. It depends because they're always looking. I mean, we've always done it that way. Then why do we have Lambda? Why do we have worksheet UDFs instead of having to do this in VBA? And I mean, I could do it in VBA fine, but this is just such a nice way of doing it. So
yeah, I think where we always done it that way always comes into play is when you're looking at an existing feature that isn't working right, then it's one of those things is like, okay, but there's a backwards compatibility thing. But bringing the new stuff in generally is like, hey, you know what? I mean, there's room for doing that. More appetite, I think, for bringing new stuff in than there is to, unfortunately, sometimes fix existing problems or holes or whatever else, which is unfortunate. But I know that's certainly one of the things I complain to them about is like, look, this product has some areas that are like Swiss cheese. Can we fill them in? And they're like,
I mean, there's stuff with tables that could use some attention. There's
stuff with VBA that could use attention. There's stuff with a ribbon that you could
use. The ribbon needs some attention. There's a lot of stuff that needs some attention. I do know that they're looking into like the charting engine that we're using now for most of our charts is 20 years old. It came out in Excel 2007, and it was buggy as all hell. And, they've made changes to it. A lot of the UI changes, like these buttons here, have made it a lot nicer than having to go up to the ribbon to do simple stuff. But they're then about 10 years after that. So when they came out with the new waterfall charts and the new box plots, which aren't as good as mine, by the way, but never mind that. They had a new chart engine for that. And some of the new charts, like, let's see, the histogram and the Pareto, which again, mine are better than too. But the waterfall and funnel chart. I hate funnel charts. Don't get me started. So a lot of those new ones use the new chart engine, but it's like they started with a new chart engine. And of course, the philosophy with software is like, minimum viable product, right? And so you get something out there that sort of does what you want, doesn't have all the features you want. And then they stopped and they didn't add additional enhancements that would have made it so much nicer. And so this nice feature where I can link the chart title to any cell that I want, and that cell's contents show up in the chart title. That doesn't work in those. In the waterfall chart, you can't set the spacing between grid lines, between tick marks. And just sat there and it stagnated. And so they're revisiting that chart engine, the 2016 era chart engine. And I don't know what's going to come of it, but it's like all the data viz effort at Microsoft went from Excel to Power BI, which is unfortunate. And of course, now with Excel, I'm not sure how much they're going to do to that new chart engine, or they're just going to say, okay, everybody, you should be using Python and Excel for all these other fancy charts. And that's nice. That makes some great charts. But what I like about Excel charts is you can get in here and click on stuff and, format stuff however you want. You don't have to write a different line of code in your Python script. So I don't know.
Stanton, on your comment, Power BI getting updates every month. How do we see Excel's life and future? Excel's getting updates every month as well. I mean,
every week.
On the web versions every week. If you actually follow the Excel blog, I mean, and I know certainly we put it out in our Excel Guru newsletters, but I mean they just released the blog for what's new in April, and I mean, there's a lot of stuff right now around Copilot. That's the big focus, of course, on where Microsoft is. It's all about AI this, every AI that, all the features that you never asked for, don't care about, and don't want. We're going to stuff them down your throat anyway. Not that I'm bitter. But there, and it's not just web. I mean, these are features that are coming to desktop, and things are changing there. So it is a thing where they are continuing to invest. We are seeing movement on these things. And Davisha, shoot me a note. I'll make sure that we can get your newsletter thing sorted out. But yeah, it's. I mean, are they investing in the things that we want to see, or are they investing in the things that they think they need to do? Those two things don't always align. I mean, there's 100 things that I would prioritize above Copilot, honestly. Having said that, Microsoft is not going to listen to me on that in that regard at any rate. So we hope that we keep on getting cool things. And I mean, we can't tell you what because we've signed NDAs, but there are cool things that they're working on. And that's as much as I'm going to say on that topic. So it's not like the product's done. Zach, as far as Microsoft doing a Power BI and Excel combo product, I don't think that will ever happen. I think that those are two separate things. I think that they diverged when Power BI became a product. Before that, they were essentially one product. I mean, we had Power View inside Excel, and it was that implementation of Power View and Power Pivot that caused a lot of us to sort of revolt on things. In some respects, I actually regret doing that in some ways, because I think it would have been better if it was all one product. But having said that, I mean, you look at how fast Power BI has been able to move without the shackles of 30 years of Excel history on it. It's impressive. So, will we see a harmonized product? Doubt it. But will we see improvements? Yes, I think we definitely will. Well, I know we will. Yeah, I don't know what else we can say. So, I'm thinking, maybe for this time, let's wrap this one up here. John, thanks again for coming and doing this. Really appreciate it. I always enjoy your insights and your. I enjoy watching you write Lambda functions to just blow my mind. That's crazy, but great presentation as always. Thanks everyone for coming and spending the time with us. I'll get the recording up in the next 24 to 48 hours, and we'll post on the Meetup site and let you know. And don't forget that we've got Sue Bays coming up in a couple of weeks, and Laura Sapezi after that. Those should be open for RSVPs. So hopefully we'll see you at the next one. So till next time, folks, thanks very much for coming, and we'll see you all again, hopefully.